Good day, brilliant minds. Welcome to video lesson with Miss KC for Social Studies on Monday, October 15th, 2017. Today you should already have your textbook open to page 34. And today, before we begin our textbook, we're actually going to set up our notes. So if you will turn to a piece of 3-hole punch, ruled paper in your binder, you're going to first make sure that you write your name in the top left line. You can then write my name, because you know it's going to be for my class. And these notes are going to be for social studies. You can then write today's date, and you've completed your heading. The next thing you want to do is go ahead and add your heading for the title of today's work. It is Classwork 1, and it is Intro to Quarter 2. And we're always going to make sure we know what page number we're in. So you can write in the margins, page 34 is where we're starting. And if we look up at page 34, one of the first things that we notice is a map. And this map has 2 questions that we need to answer. It's a geography connection, so we're going to start with that whenever we see a map. So that means that in my notes, I can go ahead and add right here, geography connection. I can go ahead and underline this so that heading pops out at me. And now I'm going to go ahead and make sure I know that I'm going to answer 2 questions here. And I can go back to my map and see what those questions are. So the first question says, the empire of Alexander the Great stretched across 3 continents. And if I look at the map, I see that it's on Europe, I see that it's in the north of Africa, and I see it stretches out even to Asia. And it dominates this area in the middle. It's often called the Middle East. I can see that where it is if I look at my key, because the empire is going to be marked in green. I also see that the path of Alexander's routes of conquest are going to be marked with red arrows, and then his major battles are going to have this kind of like explosion emoji to mark where they happened. So if I look at the first question, it says, what major battle did Alexander win before heading to Babylon? So I'm going to need to use this key to figure out the major battles that he fought before Babylon. That means I'm also going to need to figure out where Babylon is in the map. See if you can find Babylon in the map before I show it to you, so you can pause the video to find it. Okay, I see Babylon here on the map, and there's a red arrow pointing to it. So if I think he was here coming this way, that means before he's in Babylon, he must have been right here. And if I zoom in, this means he fought the battle at Gaugamela before he went to Babylon. So I can come back to my notes and I can write Alexander fought the battle of Gaugamela before Babylon. Okay, and now I'm ready for question 2. So I'm going to go back up to question 2, and it says critical thinking. Drawing conclusions. Why do you think Alexander circled the Mediterranean Sea but did not cross it? So if I look at my map, I see the Mediterranean Sea is right here, and I see that his route took him from Greece all the way around the coast into Asia Minor, down along the eastern coast, over into Africa, and then back. But he never actually went in the Mediterranean Sea or across it. So I wonder if he had the ability to travel all this way. He must have had some horses or some way to travel by land, but maybe he didn't have a way of traveling across the sea. Maybe he didn't have any boats. I'm not sure, but I'm going to take my best educated guess. I'm going to make that as my prediction. So I'm going to go ahead and write that down for number 2. I'm going to say, I think Alexander had horses to travel on land, but not boats to travel by sea. Okay. After I've completed my geography connection, I can now move on to my reading of the text on this page. And I want to make sure I've done the heading of this text to make sure we're always using our thieves strategies. So this says types of maps. So I can go ahead and add here a new heading, and I can write types of maps. And I want to make sure I write down the guiding question, what I want to know by the time I'm done reading this section. It says, what are some of the key ways that maps are used? So this is really important. This is kind of my goal by the end of the reading. So I'm going to put a star by it, and I'm going to copy the question down of my own. So what are some of the ways that maps are used? Okay, so now I know what I want to accomplish by the end of my reading. And I also see that if I look up at this, if I preview my text, there's a lot of vocabulary words. There's 1, 2 words in bold, 3, 4, 5, 6 words in bold. So I'm going to actually leave space in my notes to write down some vocabulary. Vocabulary. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 words. Vocabulary words. I think might help me to answer this question. What are some of the key ways that maps are used? So now as I read, I'll keep coming back to this to define what those vocabulary are. Let's begin reading together. As I'm reading, you're going to want to track me, so you can use your pen or pencil to track me as I am reading. Okay, here we go. Geographers use many types of maps. Maps that show a wide range of information are called general purpose maps. These maps are often collected in one book called an atlas. An atlas may be a collection of special area maps such as North American maps or general maps of the entire world. Two of the most common general purpose maps are found in an atlas are physical and political maps. Physical maps show land and water features. The colors used in physical maps may include brown or green for land and blue for water. Physical maps may also use colors to show elevation. Elevation is the height of an area above sea level. So I'm going to make sure I go ahead and add this definition in, and I'm going to write physical maps, and this is, their purpose is to show land and water features. Okay, now let's keep going about political maps. Show the names and borders of countries. They also show the locations of cities and other human-made features of a place. Often they identify major physical features of a land area. So this is a little bit different. Instead of doing land and water and things that are made by nature, these political maps show human-made features like borders of countries. Okay, and I want to make sure I'm always underlining these vocabulary words so they pop out in my notes. Let's go back to page 35 now. Special purpose maps. Some maps show specific kinds of information. These are called special purpose maps. They usually show patterns such as climate, natural resources, or population. A road map is another example of a special purpose map. Like this map of Alexander's empire, special purpose maps may also display historical information such as battles or territorial changes. So this one, right, showed the history of how Alexander fought battles throughout these 3 different continents to conquer all of his territory back in the 300 BC era. So now let's go ahead and write down a definition for special purpose maps in our notes. So we can write here, special purpose maps show patterns like climate, and history. Next section is called reading maps. An important step in reading a map is to study the map key. We've already talked about this in quarter 1. The key explains the lines and colors used in a map. It also explains any symbols or signs and pictures used in a map. For example, the map of Alexander's empire details the size of the empire, the route of Alexander's conquest, and some important battles. Cities are usually shown as a solid circle, like the one for Athens. So we saw that when we found the circle dot for Babylon, and they're showing us it also has for other cities like Athens. And we use this key to help us answer the questions that we saw in our geography connection. So now let's go ahead and write down symbols in our vocabulary list. So you can write here symbols, and a definition was, it said, signs or pictures used on a map. Okay, 2 more words left. The map scale is a measuring line that tells you distances represented on the map. Suppose you wanted to know the approximate distance from Tampa, Florida to New York City. Using the scale bar will help you calculate this distance. Okay, so this is one we haven't actually talked about before, but it's one that's important to know. Scale. Measuring line that tells distance on a map. Okay. We have 1 more left. A map has a symbol called a compass rose. You guys know about this in quarter 1, that tells you the position of the cardinal directions, north, south, east, and west. Cardinal directions help you explain the relative location of any place on Earth. Some maps also have a locator map, a small inset map that shows where this region is on a large map is located. So if we come over here, you can see that this map, it has 2 inset maps. One is telling us what it looks like today, and the other one is telling us that this area is actually a part of this larger place on the globe. So we want to go back and make sure we're putting cardinal directions right here into our notes as our last vocabulary word. So you can write cardinal directions. And this is the 4 directions we know of as north, east, south, and west. And I think it actually makes a lot of sense to draw this as an actual compass to remind ourselves of which directions they actually are. So I'm going to add that into my notes as well, a little drawing to help me. We know drawings always help us when we're learning vocabulary words, like we've done in our Freer model concept cards as well. So now I've finished my vocabulary, and I want to think about if I can answer this question. And before I answer this question, I think it would be helpful to do a circle map. So I'm going to try and draw a circle map right now and think about ways maps are used. And your circle map might be bigger than mine. This is what I'm going to do. You can make yours larger or smaller. Probably not too much smaller though. And I'm going to think of 3. I'm going to ask you to think of the next 3 on your own. So one way I see maps used are to show land and water, right? I said that for my first line right here. I see that they show directions for my compass. Right, that was the last thing I thought of. They also show human-made features like borders of countries. So I'm going to say borders of countries. So I've thought of 1, 2, and 3, and I want you to go ahead and think of 1, 2, 3 more to add to your circle map. So we have 6 items on our circle map. You can go ahead and pause the video now to go ahead and add those 3 more to complete your circle map before you answer your guiding question. All right, by now you should have a circle map that has 6 items, and you're going to want to use these 6 as well as your vocabulary to help you to answer this guiding question now after you've done vocabulary and some thinking. So I'm going to say, what are some of the ways that maps are used? I'm going to think about what in my circle map helps me. And I'm going to give you a sentence starter to begin. Maps are used to, and I want you to pause the video here and see if you can write about at least 2 ways they're used based on your circle map. By now you should have written your own sentence, and you want to check it against mine to see if mine is similar to or different from yours. They might be different and still be correct as long as you're using evidence in your thinking map or from your notes in the text. Maps are used to, I'm going to say, to show information about physical features like land and water, or to show human-made features like the borders of countries. Okay. So I just use evidence that I got about physical and political maps that I also added to my thinking map, and now I'm using to help me write. Okay. This concludes the end of today's video lesson. Right now you want to make sure a couple of things. Number one, that you can close your textbook, but you want to make sure that your notes are open so that I can see your work and make sure you're getting your classwork grade for your excellent work today. You also want to make sure that you can be going on coolmathgames.com, or you can go on CNN.com, CNN 10, which is a site for the student news video that you can watch. And then last, you want to make sure that even though you might have your earbuds in, that you're watching for Miss Casey's directions to clean up earbuds and laptops. Okay, so you're going to make sure you're thinking about these 3 things if you've already finished. Thank you so much for your work today. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow.